In the year 2013, Heather Elvis was a 20-year-old waitress and student from South Carolina. She grew up in Horry County and she was studying cosmetics and hoped for a career in the beauty industry. She moved into her own apartment in Carolina Forest, which she shared with a roommate and co-worker named Bryony Warrelman, who was from out of state. In June that year, Heather noticed a 38-year-old man named Sidney Mora. He was responsible for repairing the kitchen equipment at a workplace called the Tilted Kilt. He was married and had 2 children, but his interest was reciprocated. He started delivering bagels and coffees to her at the restaurant, even when he wasn't working. He explained to her that he and his wife had an open marriage, and his wife was seeing someone at the time. Heather tweeted earlier that month that she was interested in older men. Brianna recalled that Heather pointed him out to her at the work during one of their shifts. About a month later, she expressed a deeper interest in him. On the 12th of July, she tweeted that she had a lot of explaining to do, and that Sidney was someone that she'll go out of her way to see. Heather's friends and co-workers recalled her discussing the relationship she was having with them as well. Sidney even considered asking her to work as his children's nanny should he and his wife move to Florida, as they were considering doing at the time. They continued to meet mostly in September. However, later that month, something happened. His 42-year-old wife Tammy found out about the affair, which made her extremely angry and bitter, and she started sending threatening text messages to Heather. Brianna said Tammy made Sidney call Heather and end the affair with her listening in. Sidney, she says, told Elvis that she was nothing to him, basically tearing Heather apart as a human being, making her feel horrible about herself. Tammy also sent Heather text messages and pictures of herself and Sidney in bed together. To ensure her husband remained faithful to her, Tammy handcuffed Sidney to the couple's bed each night, changed his password to only one that she knew, and accompanied him whenever they went outside the house. He agreed to all of these conditions to help save their marriage. She also made him get a tattoo of her name on his crotch. Tammy continued to contact Heather, texting her, "Hey sweetie, ready to meet the missus?" and threatening her physically, or implying that she was going to take her husband's life. She also added that, by the way, Dad no longer has his phone, referring to Sidney. On the 1st of November, Heather sent a text message back that she was no one she needed to worry about anymore. Tammy became vengeful and tried getting Heather fired from her job at the Tilted Kilt. She would call the restaurant regularly and insist that they fire Heather, or her husband wouldn't continue doing repair works on the bar. At one point, Sidney started texting Heather again, telling her that his wife had not objected to the affair itself, since she also had a lover, but to his lying about it. She asked him when he would have his phone back, and he said the relationship was over. She agreed, but said she wanted Tammy to stop calling the Tilted Kilt. She wrote, "I lost hours today because they sent me home after she kept calling." However, on the 5th of November, when Heather last saw Sidney, she retweeted a joke that seemed to be indirectly referencing the affair, along the lines of, "You can either cheat on your wife or take her life, but never both. That's when you get caught." That appeared to be the end of the communications between Heather and the Moras. The couple and their 2 children left South Carolina to drive to Disneyland for a vacation on the 19th of November. They returned on the 11th of December. From this point, Heather was trying to move on from the affair. She had just been hired as a makeup artist, which meant she was getting into the field of work that she was most interested in. Heather also planned to start going to church with her roommate. Heather tried her hardest to put Sidney and Tammy behind her, so much so that she arranged to go on a date on the 17th of December. On a date with Stephen Schiraldi, the pair drove around the neighbourhood looking at Christmas lights at people's homes. Schiraldi then taught Heather how to drive a manual car, and then she sent a photograph of herself driving in a parking lot to her father. At 1:44 AM, Heather called Brianna, who was out of town during the early hours of the 18th of December. She expressed that she was upset because Sidney had called her at 1:35 AM from a payphone, and the call lasted for about 5 minutes. He was telling her that he had left his wife, and he missed her and wanted to see her. Heather called Sidney's cell phone at 3:17 AM. It was confirmed that Heather was at her apartment, and Sidney was at his house at the time. At 3:36 AM, a dark-coloured truck was captured by private residence CCTV, coming from the direction of Sidney's home. The same truck is then captured by business CCTV, getting closer to Heather's location. Between 3:38 and 3:40 AM, Heather's phone is pinged coming from Peachtree Lake, indicating that she repeatedly tried calling Sidney's phone. The phone is believed to have connected at 3:41 am, as it went live for 1 minute, and then it cuts out. At 3:46 am, a black truck is captured heading back towards the Mora's house. Sydney and Tammy own a black truck that's identical to the one on the surveillance footage. It was believed that Sydney lured Heather into meeting him at Peachtree Lake that morning. Later that day, Heather was reported missing, and her body has never been found. Tammy and Sydney were arrested as prime suspects. During the trial, it was revealed that Tammy was irate over her husband's affair with Heather, especially after rumours began to circulate that Heather was pregnant in December of 2013. In fact, just hours before Heather disappeared, Sydney and Tammy were seen buying a pregnancy test at a local Walmart. Additionally, a family friend named Donald Damarino testified that he saw an image of Heather on Tammy's grey flip phone at a family barbecue that was held after Heather's disappearance. Donald stated that in the image, it did not appear that Heather was able to walk or talk. He was allegedly so distraught by the image that he left after seeing it. During the court proceedings, Sydney and Tammy were convicted of kidnapping Heather, but not for taking her life, since no body had been found, and they were sentenced to 30 years in prison.
Emma Walker was a 16-year-old resident of Knoxville, Tennessee. She was a stunningly beautiful student that aspired to become a nurse one day. She had a bubbly personality, was warm-hearted, and enjoyed cheerleading. She was in a relationship with a footballer named Riley Gould, who was 2 years older than her. They had a rocky relationship in high school. However, Riley had graduated and went to a nearby college where he continued to play football. Emma's family and friends did not approve of their relationship. According to friends and family, Emma felt that she and Riley were in different places in their lives and she wanted to move on. Although Emma had ended the relationship with Riley once and for all, he refused to accept the breakup. He continued to repeatedly contact Emma after their breakup, despite her wishes to be left alone. At certain times, he even threatened suicide. Emma held her ground, though, and tried moving on. On the morning of Monday, the 21st November 2016, Emma's mother woke up and discovered her daughter was unresponsive. Her mother said, "I went in there to wake her up, which it's usually very easy to wake her up, and said her name. Didn't hear anything. Bumped her leg. Didn't hear anything. Then looked at her face and realized and checked for a pulse and couldn't find anything." Emergency services were immediately contacted. Emma had been shot in her sleep, and it appeared that somebody had did it from outside of the home through the wall. An officer who arrived at the scene found a bullet hole in the wall. 2 bullets were fired into her bedroom. One struck her behind the left ear, ending her life, and the other lodged in her pillow. Detectives questioned family and friends about who could have been responsible for this callous act, and after the investigators learned that she had been struggling with an obsessive ex-boyfriend, they immediately suspected Riley. They had seen the way he treated and spoke to her. The authorities discovered that his grandfather had also reported his gun was stolen the previous day. Immediately, Riley was closely watched as concerns were raised that he might try and destroy the evidence. As it panned out, Riley tried hiding the evidence, and the police recovered the gun that his grandfather had reported missing. After they saw Riley trying to dispose of it, investigators then began to build a case against Riley. As news of Emma got around town, Riley posted numerous tweets in his tribute to his late ex-girlfriend. He also changed his Twitter bio, living every day through Emma Walker. "I love you, beautiful, and I know you are in a better place now." The Friday night before Emma was shot, she started receiving anonymous texts that Riley had been kidnapped, and she found him lying in a ditch outside her friend's house. The following morning, a mysterious man dressed in black began banging on her door. 2 days later, she was found shot. The police soon arrested Riley and in January 2017, he was indicted for taking his girlfriend's life. Riley pleaded not guilty and went to trial in the spring of 2018. He stated that he did not intend to actually shoot Emma and was unaware that the bullet would actually travel through the wall of her house. He stated that his original intent was to fire a shot through the wall, scare her, then show up at her house to appear as a hero. The court determined that he intended to take her life and came up with this crazy scare tactic story as a cover. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 51 years' time. During the court hearing, he said to her parents, "I'm sorry I took Emma away from you, that I robbed you of the experience of watching your daughter grow up. What I can do is tell the truth about that night. I wanted to scare her. I never meant to take Emma's life. Again, I'm sorry."